All right. Hello, everybody. It is Monday, April 27th, 2020, otherwise known as the 10,000th day of April. And it's Mental Health Monday time with me, Kathy Bloom from Heady, Vermont, and Mark Nash, mental health professional and resident husband. So, where are we? Vermont's numbers, when it comes to flattening the curve on coronavirus infection rates, have been pretty good, particularly relative to other parts of the country. And so on Friday, Governor Scott outlined some additional openings as part of the phased restart of Vermont's economy, though his stay home, stay safe order remains in effect until May 15th. However, outdoor construction and manufacturing can operate with 5 or fewer employees. Outdoor retail operations like garden centers, yay, are allowed to have up to 10 total people between staff and customers. I know Red Wagon Plants in Heinsberg has been doing curbside pickup, and I already got a bunch of seeds from them. It's very exciting. Farmers markets with very strict social distancing guidelines will reopen on May 1st. And employees of currently opened or reopening businesses are required to wear face masks. Customers are encouraged but not mandated to do so, but honestly, really, just wear them because it's the polite thing to do and the safer thing to do, even though, again, with this illness, there are no guarantees. It's a virus of great mystery and power. Governor Scott is also reminding people not to let up on safety protocols. And I think, until the virus is gone, it's still out there. People, again, as we know, can be infected and shedding virus and not know it. So we need to, as hard as it is, I think still be really vigilant about this stuff. Also, the Vermont House of Representatives is trying to determine the backlog of how many people haven't been able to get help with unemployment benefits of any kind or received any kind of stimulus check. So if you've been having trouble, email your Vermont representative. You can get their email address at legislature.vermont.gov/people, and I've put this in the notes. And also CC Representative Mari Cordes, who is leading the charge on this, and she's at mcordes, CORDES, at ledge.state.vt.us. That's mcordes at ledge.state.vt.us. In Heady, Vermont's world, we've got all of the video from the Women in Cannabis Summit available to both ticket holders and anyone else who wants to get the content on demand. And that will be at womenincannabis.headyvermont.com. It's, again, $5 for Heady Vermont members and $20 for the general public. And there's tons of great material still waiting there for you in your isolation. Okay, so now on to the mental health aspect of the broadcast with psychotherapist Mark Nash. And we were talking about, and we've talked about in the past, but continue to talk about the extreme degree of uncertainty that goes with everything that we're dealing with, from what's going to happen to the economy, what's going to happen to any individual, what is going on with the virus itself. There's so much we don't know. And uncertainty is a challenging thing for us human animals to deal with.
So we hate it.
Kind of a lot. Yeah. How come? Why are we like that?
Knowing what's going to happen helps keep us safe. We would love to be able to predict the future so that we could avoid any kind of possible danger. And in normal times, we have this illusion of certainty. We have jobs that we continue to go to, and we have friends and family that we believe will always, within a scope of a lifetime, be there for us, and activities that we can count on doing. And I say it's an illusion of certainty because even in normal times, those things can go away at a moment's notice. But now, in these, our stranger times, even that illusion has been stripped away, and we don't know what's happening. We don't know what's happening with the virus. We've only been studying it for 3 or 4 months, and there's a whole lot that we don't really know about how it transmits, how it affects us. who it affects, whether or not we're going to get immunity. And so that level of uncertainty and not knowing when we're going to know these things, that's one big aspect. And then the other one is the economy and the social structure that goes along with that. And we don't know what the best way to end social distancing is, whether we phase it in, how quickly we phase it in, how quickly the economy is going to rebound. Are some of the structures of inequality going to be addressed? Are they going to be exacerbated? And so we are living with this constant state of unknowns and not knowing when those unknowns will be known.
So just a whole heap of not knowing.
It's hard.
It's really hard, yeah. So how do we deal with that?
We have to accept that there are things that we don't know. Unfortunately, we will continue to grasp for things that we do know and grab onto them really tightly. And
that's the sort of one predicting of the future that you can do, is how people tend to, we don't know what's going to happen, we don't know we're going to learn about the virus, but we do understand how people tend to respond in times of uncertainty. So if you're seeing behavior like this, or you're exhibiting it yourself, that's one thing that you can be a little bit more confident about understanding, at least.
That is, I think what you're saying is that you can be confident that you know something. Is that what you're saying?
No. You're saying that people tend to respond to uncertainty by grasping,
yes,
by wanting to hang on to any little piece of hope or understanding.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing you can predict, is that humans will tend to respond like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that response carries with it some problematic behaviors, because we find a piece of information that resonates for us and we think, okay, that's the truth, that's real, that's something that I can hang my hat on, and we get really certain about that one thing because we need something to be certain about. And then everybody who doesn't agree with that, or who isn't in line with that way of thinking, we can get really judgmental about and really harsh in viewing their different understanding of the situation and thinking, well, if they don't understand it the way that I do, they must be wrong and I must be right. And divisions ensue.
And we see this in politics in general anyway.
That's right. But it's exacerbated now because there's all these different pieces of information floating out around there. And, we saw it when face masks first started being a thing that we were talking about. And nobody knew whether am I supposed to wear a face mask all the time, only when I'm with other people, do I still have to be within 6 feet? And if you had found something that you believed to be true and decided to follow that protocol, then you started either internally or literally shouting at everybody else who wasn't doing it because you thought you knew best and they didn't. Nobody knows anything. And so absolutely hold on to those pieces of information that you believe to be true, but make space for the fact that not everybody is going to be viewing the information in the same way.
Which is tricky, because what you're saying is, this is a certainty for me. Mm-hmm. And, you've said in the past that, the fact that both our health and financial wellness are being threatened here makes the ground particularly shaky. Yeah. So if there's a piece of information which I believe to be true, which I think will protect my health and or financial wellness, mm-hmm. and someone's not following through on that same protocol, yeah. It's hard to make space for them. It's hard to have compassion.
Yeah. Yeah, and but that's our only choice, unless we want to go around in a constant state of rage and frustration and fear and attempt to control other people's behaviors, even people that we, see in the photographs down in Florida. And are we going to rage at them like, you stupid idiots, why are you on the beach? Or are you going to say, okay, well, they're doing what they think to be the best, and yeah, it has the possibility of endangering me, but there's not a whole lot I can do about it. So I guess I have to sit with the fact that they believe that they're acting in their best interests also. And it's hard to have compassion, it's hard to have empathy during these times, but we don't do it for the other people. We do it because that's actually a practice that helps us live in a relative state of equanimity rather than a constant state of agitation.
Which is the only thing that we really have much control over anyway.
Yes, we do have a certain amount of control over the way in which we perceive the world around us.
And how do we define what we do and don't? Like, yes, a certain degree of control and perception. So where's the line between what we do and don't have control over?
Well, so a couple of things. One is we have no control over our emotional reactions to things. But if we are paying attention to our emotional reactions, we then may also be able to pay attention to the thoughts and stories and narratives that arise in response to those reactions. Those initial thoughts are things that we can't control, but we can then look at those with a critical eye using our rational mind, our prefrontal cortex, our forebrain, and have a little conversation with our amygdala, our emotional brain, and say, okay, I know that you are creating this story of doom and gloom or disaster or frustration or annoyance or hatred. Is that story that you're creating based on rational thought? And even if it is it useful? Is it actually, is that story that you're creating serving you? And if you find that it is not, then you can have a conversation and say, okay, what's another story that I could tell? And so that's the way. And again, we have varying degrees of success at being able to do that. It's practice, because our emotional brain tends to be stronger and louder and more insistent on its story, and the rational brain has to work a little harder to keep up with that.
To cut through the
noise.
Yeah, it makes me think of when I was studying different meditation techniques. There's a lot of what we're familiar with is you pick a thing, whether it's your breath or a candle or a point of focus, and you spend your time keeping your attention solely on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to have thoughts and feelings will arise, and that's just the way meditation goes, and you're not failing at it because your brain, it continues to engage. That's just how it works. And if it weren't how it works, and if meditation were easy, we
wouldn't have to do it.
Right, we'd all be enlightened already. But there was another form where, as you're sitting there doing that, and the thoughts arise, you label them,
Mm-hmm.
judging
well, that's fear,
future casting, or fear, or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
And when I first heard about it, I actually thought that sounded kind of laborious to do. But when I tried it, it was actually incredibly helpful because it put a little bit of distance between me and that thought. And it's very easy, I think, to believe that your thoughts are you and that they're truth.
Yes, thoughts are not facts. Thoughts are...
Say that again.
Thoughts are not facts. Thoughts are stories. They are inventions. They are creations of the mind that don't necessarily or even ever line up with objective reality.
So when you do that labeling process, it puts a little bit of distance there. So the thought isn't over here with me. It's that thing over there a little bit more. It's like, oh, that's a thought of judgment. Mm-hmm. That's a thought of fear. And it's more like a thing sitting on your table, which can turn into kids on your lawn rather than monsters in your face. That's
right. Or an embodiment of who you are, and therefore you need to react from it. Labeling, there's a difference in just the way we experience language. When we say I am afraid, has a different emotional weight to it than, oh, I'm experiencing fear. As you said, there's a separation. You step outside of it so that you're not led around by this feeling. You are watching this feeling and how it is trying to affect you.
Oh, look, that's fear. That's that little...
That fear is trying to tell me that I need to do such and such in order to keep myself safe. Do I really need to do that thing?
Or, hey, fear kid, get off my lawn.
That's right.
Yeah. It makes me think, too, of after my appendix exploded, I'd been in the hospital, I had sepsis, I was really sick, and I was out recovering for months and months and months. And one of the things that I noticed is that my ego kind of took a hiatus. And that was just lovely. It felt like it just went on vacation. It was on a beach drinking Mai Tais somewhere and had nothing to do with me anymore. And I had no ambition. I had no need for recognition or achievement or accomplishment. And it was a luxury. It was beautiful. And I thought I was lucky enough to have my ego be gone forever. And then it came roaring back one day. When I didn't get credit for something that I hoped I would get credit for. But because it had been gone for a while, I was able to go, oh, that's my ego, it's not me. And distance myself from that even, which was also an incredible relief because I'd spent a good deal of my life being led around, not just, and I think ego, fear, all that stuff kind of travels together a little bit.
Yeah, well, ego, I think choosing ego and fear is good because both of them are interested in your survival. But it makes things, they make things seem a whole lot worse than they actually are. Our ego tends to be a bit of a drama queen.
And likes to crank up the severity of what's happening.
Yes, and needs absolute solutions right now. And if this thing doesn't happen now, ego says, I will die. I will cease to exist. And so it will push you and push you and push you and push you. And you sort of, whoever the you is, that's not the ego, has to sort of take a step back and say, well, really, ego, I think we're going to be okay if we just cool our jets a little bit.
Right. And, we talked about fear of death last week and the fact that in this very unprecedented situation, and the world has experienced pandemics before, plenty of times, and the history of Europe is the history of the Black Plague in a lot of ways. But I don't think we've ever seen it on this scale.
Well, and we also haven't been as aware of it globally, being interconnected. We have a direct pipeline to the other 7.8 billion people, as opposed to in the Middle Ages. There's like, oh, my town is fucked up.
Right.
I don't know what's happening in the rest of the world.
You might not even know what's happening 10 miles down the road.
Yeah, probably didn't consider it.
And from an economic perspective, we weren't nearly as interconnected.
That's right.
And so the part of the need for survival, it seems like sometimes it's not just how am I going to survive or how is my family going to survive or my community, how's the whole world going to survive this?
Yeah.
And we need each other badly, but we have to, I think there's a kind of distancing that's happening on a personal level and on a collective level, and at the same time as we're all hooked together online. And I can imagine there's some cognitive dissonance around all of that too.
Yeah. We are operating in both spheres at the same time, our own personal survival and having empathy for and an understanding of our need for the rest of the world.
If someone came to you and said, I have been practicing social distancing, I've been wearing my mask those few times that I have to go to the store, but I don't know if I can handle it anymore. I've got to see a friend in person. And, my friend has been hiding out, and I've been hiding out. I think we're okay. It busts protocol for us to get together, but I feel like I don't know if I'm going to survive if I can't have contact with this person. How would you help someone contend with one of those heightened moments?
Well, I'm not a medical professional. I don't know. I think that I would say, is the need something that, so what they're describing is a discomfort that they're feeling.
Extreme discomfort.
Extreme discomfort of isolation. What are the ramifications of giving into that discomfort and making the social contact? And if they feel like, basically they're going to weigh two different discomforts. One is the discomfort of the risk that they're going to take and that the other person is willing to take with them. And the other is the discomfort of sitting without that contact. And it sounds like in the situation that you're describing, they may have already done that weighing and said, I would rather take the risk than have to sit here in isolation any longer.
Yeah.
And that's life. I mean, even in non-pandemic times, we are always taking those risks. there are, and sometimes those risks have greater impact on those around us, and sometimes we can't even know how much of an impact we have. But yeah, that's the juggling act, the balancing act that we have to do.
And one of the other themes that you wanted to bring to the conversation today was we're all doing the best we can. Sounds like, in a way, having compassion for ourselves. Like, I've been in isolation for X number of weeks, and I feel like if I have this one bit of contact, I can probably do it for X number more weeks, but I don't know how I'm going to keep sane. Or, I'm sure there are people having those kind of conversations all the time. And it sounds like, in a way, there's no way to be a perfect pandemic participant.
Just like there's no way to be a perfect human being.
Right.
I want to sort of back way up and say that the whole purpose of the way that I've been talking about approaching the pandemic and our particular situation in time is that I am wanting to help people reach a greater sense of equanimity, a greater sense of calm and ease, and decrease suffering and decrease stress. That idea in itself might be anathema to some people. Some people may feel that if they let their guard down by being calm, bad things will happen. Or if they embrace equanimity, it somehow means that they don't care enough, and that the way you prove how much you care is you stay stressed out and hyped up and angry and frustrated and scared and all of the things. That's fine. That's a choice. But if you are interested in greater equanimity, then one of the worldviews that can help that is to believe, and it's an act of faith, that we are all doing our best. That doesn't mean that we are all perfect. That doesn't mean that we are all optimizing every single moment. It means that, if I get up and I'm still tired, even after I've had 9 hours of sleep, and so the work that I'm doing isn't the best that I've ever done, I'm still doing my best based on those current circumstances. And if we give ourselves and everyone else the benefit of the doubt, judgment drops away, anger, frustration drops away, patience, compassion, empathy, gratitude, gentleness, kindness tends to show up more. And since there isn't any objective way to say this person is doing their best and that person is not doing their best, then it just becomes a choice of which worldview do you want to embrace? Which one helps you feel better? Believing that we're all doing our best, or believing that some people really need to shape up a bit, including maybe myself, and you want to ask yourself, how does it feel to give yourself a hard time for not being perfect?
It feels awful,
Pretty
as far
much.
as I could tell.
Yeah.
Now, I can hear a big yeah, but in there. Certain public figures, perhaps, less deserving of that, doing their best compassion than others, or can you extend that universally?
You can, if you want to.
Can you?
Me personally?
Are you able to?
Yeah. I believe that everybody, including Trump, is doing the best he can, given his abilities, such as they are. And, I think that he suffers from things like insecurity and an endless need to have his ego propped up. And we can get into a whole discussion about whether that's his fault or not, or that's the result of how he was raised, or how much responsibility he's going to take. But I still think he's doing his best. I don't like what he's doing. I don't agree with what he's doing. I tend to turn it off because I don't want to listen to him fumbling around and doing things that are not helpful. But I don't spend a lot of time being pissed off at him.
So you can say, well, anyone we can give the benefit of the doubt is doing their best. Whether their best is good enough to address the situation is a whole other story.
That's right.
And so we can we could say, all right, you're off that task because your best is not good enough to resolve this thing, without being angry and judgmental about it. We can dismiss someone with kindness and compassion.
Yeah.
or give them a lateral promotion or whatever it might be.
Yeah, if somebody asked me to sing the Star-Spangled Banner at a baseball game, and I started to sing, I would be doing my best, but the fact that I'm tone deaf would lead other people to say, well, yeah, you are doing your best, and that's not going to work for us, so we'll get somebody who can actually sing.
Right. So kindness and compassion are not a catch-all for...
Just letting things be willy-nilly.
Yeah.
No, you can be kind and compassionate and also have very clear standards about what you are going to accept and what you're not.
Awesome. So I think we're wrapping up for today's session. Thank you all for joining us again. And if you have questions, concerns, ideas, topics you want us to address, you can email info@headyvermont.com or contact Mark if you have questions.
Yeah, let's just do it through info.
All right, info@headyvermont.com. We're doing our best today. And don't forget that if you have had trouble accessing any kind of uninsurance benefits or federal money at all, you can email your state representatives, and they're trying to get a handle on what's going on there, and that information is in the notes. So thank you all. Have a dry Monday as best you can. Stay safe, and be careful out there. All right. Thanks a lot.